All right, day one of NFL free agencies in the books. We got so much to break down for you here. We'll break down the biggest moves, good or bad. We'll tell you some big winners, we'll tell you some big losers, we'll tell you one player's stock in particular whose stock is rising like a rocket ship. We got so much to break down here. Let's dive into it. Biggest storylines were centered around the quarterbacks on Monday. Let's start with Seattle landing Sam Darnold. I don't get this move from either perspective. Let's start with Seattle first here. Let's look at the moves they've done the last few days. Trade Geno Smith, trade DK Metcalf, cut Tyler Lockett. They are clearly, right, undergoing an offensive rebuild. So if you're kind of taking a step back offensively, why the hell then would you go out in free agency, go after the biggest and I think best quarterback available in Sam Darnold, and spend the most money? He's going to get the biggest free agent contract of any of these quarterbacks available this offseason. Why would you do that when you're taking a step back? That doesn't make much sense to me. Sam Darnold, I don't think the Seahawks are signing him right to be their long-term guy. He's a placeholder. 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. If you're going to have a placeholder quarterback, you can get that at a much cheaper price. They paid Sam Darnold $100 million. 55 of it guaranteed. It feels like to me that the Seahawks are directionless. Where in one sense they want to rebuild, get some picks, and kind of, change this offense's identity. But the next, let's go out and spend big money on Sam Darnold and try to win right now. What are you doing? To me, it doesn't make any sense from Seattle's perspective. And from Sam's perspective, what are you doing, man? Look, I get it. You're here to chase the payday. You had a career year, you want to cash in. But also know who you are. Have some self-awareness. You're a quarterback who needs help, right? He is not a culture changer or a franchise changer. He's not going into a situation making everybody around him better. He needs help. He needs good coaching. He needs good players around him. As you saw, it's not a coincidence. The best year of his career happened last year in Minnesota. Best head coach, best receiver, best offensive cast of talent he had. Now you're going to go to Seattle, and that's where you're going to choose to spend the rest of your peak career in Seattle with no number one receiver? A really bad offensive line that's going to have you running for your life? Look, again, they probably give the most money. $100 million, 55 again, guaranteed. Enjoy it, Sam, but it's going to be the last big contract you get because that Seattle experiment's not going to go well, and I think your stock is going to plummet after this one. But Sam Darnold, big-time deal, going to Seattle. The Jets, they got a new quarterback in Justin Fields. This is a move I am very, very intrigued by. This, to me, is either a giant boom or a big bust. Because you look at Fields, he's a guy that, to me, leaves you wanting a lot more. Like he's still, when you look at and watch him play, it feels like a lot of the areas he struggled in his rookie year, he's still struggling in going to 2025. He does not read defenses well. He's not a quick processor and a quick decision maker. His accuracy is very shaky. So he's now going to a pressure cooker in New York where we've seen the Jets spit out, or I guess chew up and spit out, a lot of quarterbacks with talent. Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson, just completely flame out quickly. I could see Justin Fields being the next kind of guy where he's in quickly and just like that, he's out because things do not go well immediately. But there is a chance of a boom here because you look at this roster, it's not as bereft of talent as it's been in years past. They got a good receiver by the name of Garrett Wilson, who Fields has some experience with at Ohio State. So you already got that connection built. I think Breece Hall is the perfect complement to Justin Fields' rushing attack. You look at those two in the backfield, that's a really, really intimidating running duo. Now, the offensive line for the Jets has to improve, no doubt about it. They have to get better. If they do, with Hall, with Garrett Wilson, you just hire new offense coordinator Tanner Engstrad coming over from Detroit, who maybe a little bit of Ben Johnson rubs off on him. He can bring that creativity to New York, where we do see the skill set of Fields can allow for some creativeness. There's a chance this could be dare I say, a fun Jets offense. I think there's a chance that they're run heavy, lean into Fields' strengths, and they're actually productive and are a borderline playoff team next year. Now, again, I said boom or bust. It's not going to be in the middle. I tend to lean this as more of a bust, where after week 6, the fans are running them out of town and this is a complete disaster. But I think there are pieces there, and there is the potential, if the Jets do this right, which I know they have not done before, but if they do this right, There's a chance this hits. I'm intrigued by Justin Fields with the Jets. I'm not writing this off as a complete L just yet. Now that we have the futures of those two quarterbacks already determined, let's project here as we go to day number 2 for the futures of other quarterbacks. Let's start, of course, the big name still out there, Aaron Rodgers. He's going to one of two places. It's either Minnesota or it's Pittsburgh. Best case scenario for Aaron Rodgers, he lands to the Vikings. That by far, Kevin O'Connell, Justin Jefferson, I think the reason why Aaron Rodgers did not sign on day 1 is he's waiting for Minnesota. And as stupid and crazy as it sounds, everyone is waiting on the future right now of Daniel Jones. I think the Vikings want Daniel Jones first. They're waiting to see whether he decides to play with them or the Colts. And where Jones decides to play could open the door for Rodgers to follow in the exact footsteps of his predecessor in Brett Favre. Go from Green Bay to New York to Minnesota. Again, I think if you're Rodgers and you want to show everyone you still got a little bit of game left and that you could still play, you got a chip on the shoulder, Minnesota is the best chance for you to show and prove everyone who doubted you, including me, wrong. Problem, though, is I don't think it's the most realistic and likely landing spot for Rodgers. I think it is in Pittsburgh. And there's a report out by Mike Florio on Monday night saying that, from what he's hearing, the Steelers could get a deal done with Aaron Rodgers as early as Tuesday. And when you look at how Monday went, this makes sense. Right? The Steelers were never really aggressive in pursuing a quarterback on day 1, despite the fact they need a quarterback. They don't have anybody right now. You got DK Metcalf. You're going all in here for 2025. You need a good QB, yet they really did not seem to make an effort or a big effort to bring Justin Fields back. Seemingly were never interested in Sam Darnold, and we're kind of just waiting this out. So it does seem like they knew all along their plan was, we're going to sign Aaron Rodgers. Now, then that whole Rodgers, Mike Tomlin, mutual respect, love fest that they have from afar. You're trying to chase a ghost of, oh, look what he's accomplished in years past. We can maybe, we can do that again here in Pittsburgh in 2025. Look, it's your funeral. If the Steelers, you want to sign Aaron Rodgers and that's your thought of having the most success in 2025, ignore the warning signs, I guess, of previous teams, how the Packers' tenure ended, how the Jets' tenure ended. If the Steelers sign Aaron Rodgers, I think we're looking at the first sub-500 season for the Steelers in 2003. I think it's going to be that bad. In part because you look at where the Steelers are. Yes, they got DK Metcalf, but the rest of the roster are some big holes. That defense, the highest paid defense in the league in 2024, they crumbled down the stretch. They were terrible. They allowed nearly 28 points per game the last 5 games of the year. I see that carrying over into 2025 if drastic changes are not made. That run game for Pittsburgh, it's high up there in terms of yards per game because they run the ball at a high volume. But if Aaron Rodgers comes to town, now with DK Metcalf on the team, they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. And the problem for the Steelers is they're not very efficient when they run the football. The last 4 years, they are at the bottom half to bottom third of the league in terms of yards per carry. They don't run the ball efficiently. So if you can't run the ball efficiently and you got a leaky defense, are you really then basically going to bring Aaron Rodgers in and tell him, hey, Aaron, in order for us to get to the playoffs, we're going to put it on your shoulders, carry us there, and you expect that to work? Again, your funeral, Pittsburgh. Your funeral. Save this video. So come December, when we're talking about the Steelers under 500, missing the playoffs, you could go back and say, you know what, Ryan? You were right. Bookmark this. Aaron Rodgers will go to Pittsburgh. It will not work. Russell Wilson, where he will end up is with the New York Giants. This is the equivalent of being at a bar, single, 2 a.m., lights come on, couples start to leave the bar, and you look over, you see another person who's also single, who's also made the decision when they walked in, I'm not leaving here alone. And you both agree, yeah, living with each other, is this a preference? No, but living with someone is better than living alone. That's exactly what this is. Something is better than nothing. I don't think the Giants targeted Russell Wilson, and this was their ideal quarterback for 2025, and I'm sure as hell thinking that Russell Wilson did not think he'll be spending his time with the New York Giants, as they are just right now a complete mess and trying to get the ship righted here. I don't think that Russ thought this is where he would spend his 2025. But that's where these two teams are, or these two people are, if you will, Giants and Russ. desperate with no other option. The Russ stock, whew, boy, has it sunk. I'm not a big Russ guy. I think with what you saw of him at the end of the Steelers' tenure is truly who he is. Struggled, made bad decisions, forced the ball, turned it over, not great. Took too many sacks. I think that's who Russ is at this point in his career. But you talk about having your stock go from 100 to 0 in the span of a blink of an eye. 2 years ago, Russell Wilson, everyone wanted him. Now, nobody wants him, to the point where Yahoo Sports NFL insider Charles Robinson tweeted this on Monday. He called the Russell Wilson market, quote unquote, flat outside of the Giants. Whew. Oh, man, that is bad. 2 a.m. at the bar, and it's, oh boy, not my ideal pick. Not my first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth pick. But a little something's better than nothing. Russell Wilson and the Giants, that should be it. You know what? Russ, there is your slogan. We just did it. There is your slogan for 2025, Russ, when you inevitably sign with the Giants. Something is better than nothing. The man we said is holding up right now the quarterback carousel, Daniel Jones. He's deciding between, reportedly, the Vikings or the Colts. I think he's signing with the Vikings. I think the Vikings, when they signed to the practice squad last year, had this exact scenario in their head. We're going to bring him into Minnesota, get him in the system, learn the terminology, kind of feel him out. And so when Sam gets too expensive, we can't afford him, we can look back on Daniel Jones as a placeholder until we feel like J.J. McCarthy is ready to go. I think when it's all said and done, Daniel Jones will remain in Minnesota. But what's interesting to watch, because I don't think it's as easy of a decision as you would think right on the surface. Well, Vikings or Colts. Vikings won 14 games last year. Colts right now are kind of going nowhere. It's stuck in the middle. The offensive talent, Justin Jefferson, Michael Pittman Jr., right? It's easy, you would think. But here's why it's not. I think Daniel Jones is trying to play. And if he's trying to play and get some real tape out there outside of maybe a month, 6 weeks before McCarthy comes in, he has a better chance to play more in Indy. You know, I think when it's all said and done, even though the Colts have talked about a competition at quarterback, Anthony Richardson is going to be the week one starter for the Colts. But will Richardson be good enough to keep that job? Right now, everything he's shown is no. Will he be healthy enough to start all 17 games? That right now answer is definitely not, with what we've seen so far for the first 2 years of Richardson in Indy. So if you're Jones, yeah, the situation is much better in Minnesota. But if you want to play and parlay 2025 into a big contract or be able to at least get a starting job somewhere else for more than just a year, you go to Indy, you're going to have a chance to put a lot more tape out there than you would in Minnesota. When it's all said and done, I think he's in Minnesota, but that's why you're seeing Daniel Jones kind of wrestle with this. I think it's a harder decision than maybe it seems on the surface. All right, before we get to winners and losers here of day one of NFL free agency, let's get this Laremy Tunsil trade. What the fuck are the Texans doing? They just traded their Pro Bowl left tackle to the Commanders for a few picks, but now leave their quarterback and C.J. Stroud even more vulnerable than he's been so far in the first 2 years of his career. This is a guy who's gotten sacked 90 times so far in 2 years. The only bright spot on the offensive line was Tunsil. Pro Bowler in 5 out of the last 6 years. This according to Brett Coleman of Underdog. Tunsil has the second lowest pressure rate of any tackle over the last 3 seasons. He has been consistently good. The only reason that C.J. Stroud has a hope of being protected is Tunsil on his blind side. And you're saying, 90 sacks, see you later. We're going to make this offensive line worse before it gets better. How does that make sense? You're not rebuilding right now. You're trying to go for it. You're trying to be a playoff team. You're trying to take that next step and get to the AFC title game. And now you're going to put your young quarterback in even more harm's way by trading the only valuable piece on your offensive line? Make it make sense. There is no way to justify this. None whatsoever by the Texans. I've seen a lot of reports coming out of Houston since this trade was made of the reason the trade was made being culture. We're going to turn the culture around. We didn't like the mindset of the offensive line. BS. I don't care what culture you're trying to implement. You don't trade away a left tackle of Tunsil's caliber while the rest of the line is a complete sieve. Do you want C.J. Stroud to be David Carr 2.0? 90 sacks in 2 years. He's well on his way. That's inexcusable. Inexcusable right now if you're the Texans to trade away a guy of Tunsil's talent when nobody can block for your young quarterback. That's crazy. On the flip side, though, from the Commanders' perspective, I love their aggressives. Now, they give up 4 picks here. They give up in this upcoming draft, 2025, a 3rd-round pick and a 7th-round pick. Next year, they give up a 2nd-round pick and a 4th-round pick. They give up some good draft capital, but now they are protecting Jaden Daniels, securing his blind side, and are not sitting around saying, we got some time, we can be patient. They're going right now. They had a great year, number 1, from Jaden Daniels, and they are being aggressive in capitalizing on that momentum. I love it. Love it. I still don't think after this move and after the Deebo Samuel move, they're the biggest threat to the Eagles. Their defense needs a hell of a lot of work, especially in that stopping the run. They need to shore up a lot of those holes. They were eviscerated on the ground all season long. So that has to be shored up before we're talking about the Commanders as a legitimate Super Bowl caliber team in the NFC, but they're going in the right direction. That team is trending up. I like where the head's at. I like where the aggressiveness is at from the front office. Love this trade from the Commanders' perspective. All right, let's get into a few winners, losers from day 1 of NFL free agency. Biggest winner to me is the Chicago Bears because what they displayed is a change of philosophy. I think to me, they've proven they have a winning philosophy. Go back to last year. This time last year, what did the Bears prioritize? Flash. Right, they were about Caleb Williams and drafting Rome Odunze and signing Keenan Allen. They wanted all the receivers, all the highlights, all the flash that comes with those skill positions. And they ignored what really wins in the NFL, the trenches, offensive line and defensive line. And so Ben Johnson comes in, offensive guru, and he realized right away, despite all the flash and all the attention he gets for being creative and the explosive plays that the Lions were able to produce over the last few years, he knows, hey, in order for us to truly win, in order for us to have the time to call those explosive plays, we got to block, we got to tackle. And so the Bears, they have exclusively attacked the trenches so far during free agency. I love it. Monday, they signed Drew Dahman, center from the Falcons. This is a guy who's I think can anchor that offensive line. He's a very good leader. Next to him are 2 guards, right, that they traded for, one from the Rams, the other one, notably Joe Thuney. So you right now, in the span of a week, shored up the interior of your offensive line with 3 veteran, proven players. I love that. That is a tremendous philosophy. Caleb Williams actually has a chance to succeed because he's now actually going to have time to read a defense and make a decision, not run for his life the way he was for most of last year. But they didn't stop there. On the defensive line, I think they added some good, proven talent, but also some promising young talent here as well. They got Grady Jarrett right there in the middle of the defensive line. I think he's a great addition. That's a surprising guy that came free from the Falcons, but that's the Bears' delight. You signed Dio Adengbo from the Colts, who I think shows promise. And in the right system here, can really flourish, get after the quarterback on the edge. I like those moves as well. So you look at the Bears, what they've done so far. They've attacked the offensive line. They attacked the defensive line. They put all the resources there. I love the philosophy from Chicago. To me, they're the biggest winner from day 1 of NFL free agency. Patriots, hold on to your wallet. They spent in one day over $265 million. Now, we're going to give them some praise here in a second. But I got to say, they spent a lot of money. They're definitely in that 265 they spent. Definitely a few overpays. Definitely they paid a few guys to be placeholders. They're not, that franchise cornerstone player that you're hoping for, but it gives you time to find that guy eventually. But with that said, the Patriots accomplished 2 things here. Number 1, they made the roster better. This is one of the worst rosters in all the NFL. They definitely got good talent on this roster today in free agency. The other thing they did on Monday was they showed the identity that they have. They have an idea what the hell they're doing. I don't think Gerard Mayo knew what his team was. It did not feel like there was a true identity for the Patriots. Mike Vrabel comes in, there was a true identity. He got guys he knows, he trusts, and he believes in. Milton Williams is the biggest name and the biggest contract they got. Coming over from the Eagles, he brings Super Bowl experience. He's a disruptor on the defensive line. And also, this is a fun fact. How about this? Milton Williams, $104 million contract he signed, $26 million per year average annual value. He is now the highest paid Patriots player in franchise history, surpassing Tom Brady's mark of $25 million per year. My mind was blown. My mind was blown that that's the highest paid in terms of average annual value. No contracts are going up now, but still. Defensive lineman. Is that not the Patriots? Defensive lineman, highest paid player in terms of AAV in franchise history. But anyway, you got Milton Williams. You pair him now with Harold Landry coming over from Tennessee. The last 3 years he's been healthy. 9 sacks bare minimum each of those 3 years, so he can get after the quarterback consistently. Was there in Tennessee with Mike Vrabel. Has some familiarity. You're able to sign a few other guys in the defense as well. Robert Spillane, good key player, familiar with the Vrabel system. On offense, you get Morgan Moses, who, again, I think is a placeholder in the offensive line, but for 2 or 3 years, he can do a good job of protecting Drake May, which is something he sorely needs. Now, you need more offensive line help. You definitely need some more playmakers at receiver. You got Mac Hollins, vet, but again, that guy's not taking the top off the defense. He's being the number one receiver. But there was a good start here by the Patriots. They're going in the right direction. They got more talent on the roster. Long way to go, but I like the way that they started right now building their team for 2025 and beyond. And the last winner I got here from day one of NFL free agency, it's the Broncos. They signed 2 guys that I think are defensive mindset changers. Dre Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga, both coming over from the 49ers. Those guys are dogs. They are aggressive. They play with chips on their shoulders. That's going to be a chippy, aggressive defense. That was a good defense last year for Denver. And now they get like an attitude adjustment. They got some guys that are hungry. That I think will make that defense meaner, tougher, better. They're good leaders. I love these 2 signings here by Denver. Now, it's a little bit of a risk because you need health from both, right? Dre Greenlaw was missed most of last year coming off that Achilles pop he had in the Super Bowl. And Hufanga's missed some time each of the last 2 years. But if they can stay healthy, they bring a mentality that Denver was missing defensively. That I think makes them better. On top of, obviously, the talent that they bring. I love this from Denver. Nice move by them to make their defense even better here. I got one big loser for you. One big-time loser. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers. They made the DK and Metcalf trade over the weekend. And I think, for me, they lost all momentum by being passive at quarterback. Sam Darnold was the guy. Sam Darnold was the most talented free agent quarterback available. I think he gave you the only chance to make the playoffs here in 2025. And you are not even aggressive. You didn't bat an eye. And you basically sat on your hands and are waiting for Aaron Rodgers, which is a disaster in the making. How can you be so aggressive in getting DK and so passive at quarterback and settling for Aaron Rodgers at 42 coming off a year in which the Jets, where you can look at the numbers, 20-11, he had a pretty good year. He was not good. Look at when the Jets had a 9-game losing streak or lost 9 out of 10 games in the middle of the season. They lost primarily because of Rodgers. He stunk. He's a cancer in the locker room. He's a distraction. And that's the answer you're going to have for 2025? That, to me, makes no sense whatsoever. And you miss out, again, on the most talented quarterback in Sam Darnold when he was affordable. Look at that 3-year, $100 million contract he got from Seattle, 55 guaranteed. In terms of average annual value, Darnold is now the 18th highest paid quarterback in the league, which, I mean, doesn't that sound fair? Maybe, dare I say, sound like a value? And you couldn't do that if you're Pittsburgh? You could not do that deal? Every other option out there for the Steelers, Fields, Russ, Kirk, Daniel Jones, Aaron Rodgers, was not good. They've never been good, or they're way washed up past their prime. Why you didn't jump on Darnold, I have no idea. But I think now the DK Metcalf momentum is lost. It's gone. And for 2025, I think the Steelers are right now looking upstream, maybe swimming upstream is probably the better way to say it, to make a playoff berth here. No bueno whatsoever. All right, so we went a little long there, so that'll do it, at least for terms of day one reactions to NFL free agency. If you check out the channel for the first time, appreciate you. Make sure you do subscribe. Ryan Hickey on YouTube. If you're listening to this on our podcast feed, Hick at Night, make sure you subscribe to that as well. Night spelled Nite, available wherever you do get your pods. The biggest winner you would say from NFL free agency day number 1 is right below in the comments on YouTube, or tweet me Ryan_Hickey3 on Twitter.